This is Beach Talk Radio.
Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. This is your captain speaking, Mean Gene. Mean Gene. The following will be a test of the ship's whistle, the sonar alarm, the cable alarm, and the atomic attack alarm.
Hello, America, and welcome to the #1 radio station in all of Fort Myers Beach. Beach Talk Radio. Here are your hosts, Kim and Ed Ryan.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome to a special show, our Friday night show. We are broadcasting live from the Diamond Head Resort on Fort Myers Beach for a presentation from the Freeland Group, along with the Neighborhood Company. And Patrick Van Ness and Ben Freeland are here, along with my wife, who's Facebooking or texting her friends or something. And we have a presentation to show you with some new pictures of the property, the Arches property over by Moss Marine. So I'll let you guys figure out how you want to start it out. Ben, you want to kind of tell us how we got here?
Yeah, that'd be great. Oh, thanks, Ed and Kim. Appreciate you having us, and everybody online. I guess we've been at this since really just post-hurricane. End of 22, we really started thinking about the property once we saw the devastation there and started to think about what would be something new and different and that could really complement the island. So, we started meeting with town officials, different folks at that point, just to get a feel, is there an interest in doing something different on that property and having a mixed-use environment and open up the bayfront for the public? And there seemed to be great support for it. So we put together, a world-class team between local specialists as well as development company from the outside, DPZ, and came together with a plan and went through that most of 22. And we put in our applications to get approval in August of 23. And then that's when some headwinds started coming and more comments about maybe it was a little bit too big in scope and size. And so, really started thinking through it, and, we got great feedback through all the output, the open houses and charrettes and different things we did. So, as we went through that and felt like, well, maybe there was a change, a mindset a little bit. And so we started rethinking it, listening to what everybody was saying. And so this summer we brought on the Neighborhood Company and Patrick and Ken and tried to kind of re-envision a little bit more to where the town was at this time. So, and our intent the whole time is really to be in support of what the town wants. So we just didn't want to swim upstream. So there were some, ideas, well, it's all or nothing kind of comment, and that's really not it. It's just, I want to be in unison with the town. I don't think everybody's going to love any development, but in general, I wanted to be have support. I didn't want to fight the town hall, so to speak. So, so we met with the local officials and stakeholders, neighbors, community businesses, listened to all the input, and we've refined the plan. We think we've got a better plan now than we had before. It's got less mass to it, a different room count. We've dropped the room count down. We really tried to keep a dry stack portion of the marina along with the resort, and we just couldn't make it work.
Mm-hmm.
That was really the intent when we started rethinking it. But the property just doesn't lend itself to it. Once you put the industrial marina in, the resort part just gets pretty clunky, and you don't open up the bayfront. So we have shelved the dry stack portion of the marina. We still have all the wet slopes and those amenities, the bay side of it, and Patrick will go through more details, but it'd be really more resort focused. Really looked at the architecture too, wanted to incorporate more of the Key West, old Florida style, and maybe St. Augustine, a little Spanish style, a little more Spanish architecture to it as we move forward. So we think that really fits the style of the beach and where some of the projects that we've seen get approved and kind of where the town's mindset is. So we think we've addressed neighborhood concerns, stakeholder concerns, public officials, between the massing and different things, and we think we've got a great project. So I'm going to let Patrick.
Before Patrick,
I just have one question. I didn't want to cut you off, but just to back up a little bit, you've owned Moss Marine. That's been there a long time, because I remember we went down on the casino cruise, Big M, like 100 years ago. So that's been there a long time. Why decide now to do something different? I mean, I know the hurricane came, it didn't flatten everything, but why did you decide now after all this time to do something different with the property?
Right. So Moss Marino has been there before my family was involved in it, right? So it's from the 60s, Jim. Yeah. So I think the first buildings were in the 60s, the Moss family. Then my father bought it in the early 80s. And so he's owned and operated it up until I took it over for the family about in 2020. So, and so we were looking at the buildings were built in the 60s and 80s, really, and they were coming to end of life. So it's like, what are we going to do going forward? This is pre-hurricane.
Right,
Just
right,
thinking
right.
out 3-5 years.
So you were thinking about doing something different before
yeah,
the
but
hurricane?
not sure what, and just
Okay.
thinking of the town and what would work on the property, but really nothing was in process, right? So then hurricane came, knocked out 4 of the 6 buildings. So we had to demolish them, and the 2 that are remaining are pretty beat up, right? So they're barely functional at this point. So, and then you see the property empty, and then we really see the devastation to the island. And it's like, wait a minute, this island is in, in our opinion, was in drastic need. It's void of we call beds, between the hotel shortage, the short-term rental shortage, all the things that are going on. And you look at 10 of the downtown district was, and we thought, this is something special. And there's really no access to the bayfront for the public. And can we incorporate something? And that's kind of the genesis of where it started. And that was probably, November, December, and we started having conversations. And then first quarter of 23, we really started, we felt momentum and people wanted something different and better down there. They're getting excited about the concept. And so we started moving forward, and maybe we overshot, overshot our target a little bit.
You did put a lot of work into that meeting. Absolutely. I remember the presentations at the Pink Shell. The room was packed,
right?
And all the other meetings that you had with the original plan. At what point did you realize, oh shit, maybe this is too big?
Well, we thought we had support. We overall, I'm going to tell you, we still have way more support than negativity. We have over 1,500 surveys, letters of support to the council members and ourselves. And so we have a lot of support for the original plan, but the council just, LPA seemed to, that first LPA meeting, when those 2 permits got separated and we tried to just move forward with the future land use, everybody started then bringing up, well, wait, we really want to see the other permit at the same time. And that is when it started stalling out. Right.
Yeah.
So, and then the concern with the room count started, was popping up. So, we felt it was a great plan. We thought it had a lot of public benefit, but, we've relooked at it and we're here to say, hey, if you really want something different on that property, we're well on to do this plan. We think we've got it right. And, hopefully everybody will be as excited as we are.
So
for those who don't know, and whoever can answer this, that don't know about the future land use, and then that's got to change, and then this. Can you, either one of you or
I'll
whoever?
let the expert
Not
explain
me.
It
Won't be me.
We can get into those weeds, but I want everybody to know that you brought the neighborhood company along.
Right.
It had to be a couple of weeks ago or a month ago or something, or maybe
a
after.
Few months back,
okay.
A few months back when we decided to really think, I was, trying to decide, do I really want to move forward with
Gotcha.
it? And said, well, let's get Patrick and Ken on board and kind of give it more of a local flavor. And maybe we missed that mark. Maybe the design was a little too progressive and the room count. So we said, let's just really think about it. So, and with Jim Inc. and our attorneys, and really started thinking about how, where does it need to be to fit where the town wants to go, and will it still fund, and is it something we should consider? And I think we got it right.
The advantage that the neighborhood company has is Patrick lives on the island. He was on the LPA for 6 years, and then they got the Myerside project approved, the 7-Elevens approved, they're working on the Neptune. I don't know if I'm missing anything. The cottage, that's right, the cottage. And so here we are, Patrick, and
we'll explain a little bit about how they have the future use, and for those who aren't in the weeds.
Well, first of all, thanks for having us here tonight. It's a pleasure to be a part of this team. Ken and I have looked at this project from the very beginning. We always thought it was a great project. They had a great design team in DPZ that came up with the original concept. We thought it was the right project, the right location. But I'm a resident, so I hear all the talk. I get a lot of feedback from my neighbors and everywhere I go on this island. I get comments from people. And I think the resounding comment was, we like the project. We like the location, the idea of the project. We just think it's a little too big. And so we're happy they brought us in. I think what we've done is we started with a very good base, and we looked at how we could address the comments that we've heard. And when it comes to public benefit, how we could enhance the public benefit. When it comes to compatibility, how we could address every compatibility issue and improve upon that. And also when it comes to aesthetics and design, make it a little more coastal. And then lastly, from a functionality, just making sure that the resort functions well. One of the things that as soon as we got our architect group to start looking at that, they said, look, you probably want to separate your guest experience from the public experience, and the back of the house. Make sure that you've got very clearly defined architecture that separates that. So we looked at all those issues, and what we're doing today is we're coming here to give you a bit of an update where we are. The intent is to try to get the submittal back to the town next week. So we figure we'd come over here, give you an update. We unfortunately don't have all the renderings done. It's quite a bit of a heavy lift, and it's one of those processes that you've got to come up with something, and then we all get together and everybody comments and you make some edits, and typically you'll go through 3-4 iterations until you land on something everybody agrees on. So we're still in that process. As soon as we have those renderings, we'll be happy to share them with you, and everybody will get to see them. But today we've got the site plans. We are at the point where we know what the resort's going to look like from a building standpoint, from a site standpoint, and we can talk about that.
Okay.
But going back to address just the comp plan thing.
Yeah.
So comp plan has a future land use map, and what the future land use map is, it looks out 30 years and says, okay, what does this town want to be? Where do we want to put commercial uses? Where do we want to put higher density residential, lower density residential? And every municipality has that. And then you've got some zoning districts that implement that vision. So that specific property had a future land use designation of Marina. It's right by the downtown, which is pedestrian commercial and allows for a mix of uses. We think it makes a lot of sense to just extend the downtown and the pedestrian commercial. But before you can do your rezone, you have to change the map. So that's what they were doing. They were coming in the first time around to change the map. Once the map change would have been approved, they would have come in with their CPD and provided all that detail. What they heard is bring those in together.
Right.
So when we look at the map, and if we're going to approve the map change, we know exactly what you're proposing as a CPD. So that's what we're doing also, is the map change and the CPD are companion applications. They will go through the process together. They will go to hearing together.
Okay. And you thinking next week?
For the resubmittal next week, and hopefully within a month and a half, we're back at public hearing.
Okay. At the town's public town council, or do you have to go? You don't have to go back to the LPA, but
We do have to go back to the LPA for the CPD.
Gotcha.
Because the
Right.
CPD, the rezone, was never heard by the LPA. So we're going to go back to the LPA and then after council.
all right. So folks, we're going to share the screen, and Patrick's going to take us through, and Patrick and Ben are going to take us through the presentation. But if you have any questions, we're not going to be able to see them until the end of the presentation. I want to take the banner off, and we'll get the full screen up
Just
there.
let me know, Ed, when we're up on screen.
They can see that picture right there already.
Okay. So what this picture is the plan that was done and originally submitted for the Arches Resort. And what you see there is the general concept with it's 4 buildings, but on the eastern side. And just so everybody understands we're at the north end of the island, and everybody tends to think north-south for the island. But where we are right now, due north, is towards Matanzas Pass.
Mhm.
and the residential that abuts us is to the south. Okay, so when I talk about the resort, I'm going to talk about uses from an east to west standpoint. Okay, so on the eastern side, you've got this much bigger building there. So that's one building. You've got another one that kind of joins it, and you've got a third building with some separation, and then the fourth building. And don't forget, along San Carlos, Old San Carlos, and Third, that's where the Arches Cafe was proposed, a smaller building there. So if you click down on that, what you'll see is that design provided for 4 smaller view corridors. And as I mentioned, the biggest concern we had was it's a little big. So as planners, and designers, when we're thinking of what does it mean to be a little big, we think of it's the massing, it's how big of a structure do you have, how imposing is that structure, and do you have view corridors in between. So this initial plan shows you those view corridors. First thing we said is, let's break down that massing. Let's create narrow buildings and narrow footprints, and let's widen those view corridors. So if you go down, those are elevations of what was proposed previously. As you can see on the picture right up top on the left side, that those first 2 buildings were really wide, one large mass without any kind of breakup. And then you could see the view corridors between the other buildings. So if you go to the next slide.
So just so people know, the one on the top is the old one.
And that's a view from the water.
Right.
And that's where the bayfront promenade would be, where you had a lot of public uses, public access to the water. And then you had those multiple buildings. And what we did is we looked at that right away and we said, how can we enhance that? And I think the idea was really we need to break up that massing, create buildings that are a little more narrow. And
so this is so people know the bottom one is not the new one. This is both the old one.
Yes.
Okay.
The one below is a view from the residential on 3rd Street.
Okay.
So it's the back of the buildings that you see up top.
All right. We ready?
Yep. So this is our proposed site plan. And as you can see, we have the building at the corner of Old San Carlos and 3rd is identified as A. You've got building B right there, C, D, and E. What we've tried to do is, if you hit the next, down
hit the button so you can see
is we'll compare the view sheds. Yep. So as you can see, we've increased the view corridors. We've also widened those view corridors and made the buildings a little more narrow. What we've also done is we created this intensity of use gradient. So to the east, you've got downtown, you've got all these commercial uses, entertainment venues, and it's a lot more active, a lot more lively. So we made sure that we
make sure people saw this.
There,
I want to make sure people saw this slide. There you go.
Okay.
I think, Chris, is this the slide that didn't show for some reason before? I just want to make sure that they go re-describe what this is. I think they missed that slide somehow.
So what we're seeing here is what was previously submitted to the town, what was presented at the numerous public workshops that they've held before. And what we're seeing is the picture up top is a view from the bay looking towards the Arches Resort. You've got the public promenade along the water, and you've got these buildings that we've tried to break up and create less massing, bigger view corridors. The renderings just below at the bottom is the backside of those buildings. That's a view from the residential along 3rd Street.
All right. Well, I'm going to do it that way so I can make sure. So you were talking about this one before I changed it over. So
as I mentioned, we created buildings that are narrower. We've increased the spacing between the buildings, and we've increased the view corridors from 4 view corridors to 5, and we've also made them wider. Then we intentionally created an intensity of use gradient. So we know that the the downtown's a lot more lively.
Intensity use gradient. Dumb it down for me.
Yeah. So what I mean by that is the downtown is a lot more active, a lot more lively. There's always been that interface between the residential neighborhood that's right there and that commercial. People expect it. So there's always an expectation that as you get closer to downtown, it's going to be a greater mix of use. It's going to be more active. It's going to be more lively. So we thought it makes a lot of sense to focus the activity and all the access along the eastern portion of the development of the resort. And as you move west, what we've done is the buildings get smaller. They're not as tall.
Okay.
And also the activities and the commercial gets limited the closer you get to that canal. So if you
Next one.
I think one of the questions that I don't know, I can't see if it was up there when you were saying,
Mhm.
We increased the view corridor. The question then becomes, well, then, I mean, most people do that by going up, by going
Yes.
in and going up. So is that what happened close to the downtown district in the more intense gradient area?
Well, let me start by clarifying the amount of room. So we went from, the initial request was for 400 rooms.
Uh-huh.
And the request is going to be, the reduction will be to 263 rooms.
Okay.
So there's a significant
Mhm.
decrease in those rooms. So that allowed us to make the buildings narrower, but it's still quite a few rooms. And we also wanted to increase the setbacks and the separation from the adjoining uses. So what we've done is if you start along Old San Carlos, that building is a 2-story building. That's what's identified as Building A. Building B, which is close to other commercial uses, is going to be 7 stories. The southern wing closest to the residential is going to drop down to 5 stories. Building C is also 7 stories.
Wait,
Then when
what
we
did you
get to-
say? You went B is 7. What's 5?
B is 7, but it
Yeah.
goes down to 5
Okay.
as it
Yes,
gets close to.
the wing that's to the south closest to the residential has dropped down to 5. And also that portion of the previous building was all parking garage. It was 5-6 stories of kind of massive parking garage. And all the parking now has been distributed under all the different buildings.
Can
So-
I just ask, what's the height? What's the comparable height of the storage buildings? Do you know what I'm saying? Because I mean, stories, I don't know, but how much bigger, how much taller is?
Boat barns would be what?
Sorry.
The existing boat barns.
Yeah.
I
So people
believe,
have an idea of
are-
what's there now and
were-
what it would
were
change.
40 now? Okay. So there were we had different boat barns. We had some built in the 60s,
Yeah.
some built in the 80s.
So right now, the 2 that are left are 40 feet high. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
40 feet high. And what Jim has told me before is the standard height for modern boat barns today is plus or minus 70 feet.
Okay.
So when it comes to height, when we get to building D, the height drops down to 6 stories. And when we get to building E, it drops down to 5 stories.
You got 7, 5, 6, and 5.
Yeah.
And then do they all kind of drop down as you get residential, or they stay at
No,
5?
it was
Just B.
the biggest one, the B building.
Okay. And what is the height of all the buildings, Patrick?
So from a feet standpoint, so the tallest building at 7 stories, and we haven't fully finished the design, is going to be somewhere. We used to be at 70 feet with 6 stories. With 7 stories, we're going to be somewhere in the 75 to 80 foot range. But again, we're still working through those details.
So B will be the highest building.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just that one section.
There you go.
So this is a comparative view to what you saw previously. And, if you want to switch back and forth, that might be helpful for the audience. But,
No,
but
I don't
what
wanna
we're
get
trying to
that
show here
complicated.
is if you compare that to what we had previously, when you're looking from the bay, you've got a lot more open sky, a lot more air and space. and also the separations between the buildings is now greater, and the amount of massing has been reduced. So the top image is a view from the bay, looking towards that public promenade and looking south. And then below that is looking from 3rd Street, and that's the backside of the building. And what we also did is, if you go back and you think about what the backside used to look like, it was a lot more stark before. We had a big parking garage in the back. There was vegetation added to it, but this one is going to have more of the hotel finishes on all sides. We've really listened to this idea of, make it smaller. So we broke up that massing. We improved the view corridors. If you go on to the next slide, Ed.
Well, just so people know, this is the new building, just so that you know, this will be the one that we show you later on Facebook.
So when we work on architectural designs like this, we have to do a SketchUp model.
Yeah.
And then this is just the shells.
Right. Just so people know, you've seen the neighborhood company's work. It's not going to be a gray building.
No.
All right. Just so you'll know that. Don't go crazy that you think it's going to be a gray building.
So what we're going to be doing in the next few weeks is adding. Yeah.
Okay. So that's the old, and now
Yeah.
flip to.
And
There you
that's
go.
it.
Oh, you can definitely see the
Yeah,
difference.
but you have to
massing.
go back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, dear. I appreciate the
You needed
the
some
lessons
help.
that you're giving me on how to do this, because you.
Mm.
All right. So we going to this one, Patrick?
Yeah.
All right.
So what we want to show here is, previously there was vehicular access into the adjacent neighborhood along Bonita and Harbor Court, and we've designed it where all the access is going to be focused on this new road that's going to be created, Arches Way. So when 3rd Street is near the bottom, that first arrow kind of directs all the traffic up Arches Way. You see the red arrows or the vehicular access through the site. So the top arrow at the very top is where you've got deliveries back of the house. You've got another entrance to the parking garage there. The one towards the south, that arrow going in, is also for parking garage. And the larger arrow that goes all the way through the resort is this connection that we have from building to building for parking. So now you do not need to have any vehicular access into the neighborhood. Everything is contained within the resort. And the idea is to have right at the intersection of 3rd and Arches Way, have a sign clearly saying local traffic only. We don't want to create any disturbance to the neighbors or any additional traffic.
So the bottom coming off of 3rd,
Yeah.
that is the only way for people to get in, other than the commercial access, which is that's coming off of like where Wahoo
Yeah,
Willie's and the.
Yeah, we can't, you're completely right, but we can't really gate 3rd Street off. So there will be people that will ultimately drive there. And
Right.
what you see is up Bonita and up Harbor is we do have these little turnarounds that if someone does go visit the
Misses
neighborhood
the turn.
and then they
okay.
realize I've got to turn around, they can
Mhm,
turn around and get back out. The large yellow arrow, what that is the pedestrian connections internal to the resort. So if someone gets dropped off right up front at the main entrance, they check in, and someone could take from the hotel can take them through the hotel. If they're in building C, there's somebody else in their party who's at staying in building D or E. They just keep walking through. There's going to be some little covered awnings from building to building, and at the ground level, they can get all the way to their building, building E on the end.
So if somebody came down like with Uber or whatever, they could get dropped off and then walk.
We'll talk
What?
about
Yeah, hold on,
Uber
dear. You're
and
jumping
Lyft,
ahead.
and we've thought about that too.
And before we leave, the
Mm.
top arrow where the back of house
Yeah.
entrances,
Mm.
we do have access easement through right off of First,
Okay.
right by Wahoo Willie's.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
between
That
that and
right
Marina
where that
Village,
is now.
That comes
Mhm.
straight in. So there's two entry points to Arches Way.
So, Patrick, you said 75 to 80 feet. Is that over base flood elevation or over parking,
That
or
would be from grade. So
Okay.
so total height?
so zone height is going to be less than that. Zone height is going to be measured from base flood elevation plus 3 feet of freeboard. That's where we start measuring when it comes to zone height. And again, that hasn't been finalized yet, but obviously it's going to be something less than that 75 to 80.
All right.
You go on to the next slide. So what we're showing here is the area depicted with that dashed line. That's the southern side of the resort. That's the interface between the resort and the adjacent residential properties. We wanted to make sure that we were good neighbors. So that green belt that was in the previous plans was, I think, at about the widest, it was about 30 feet. We were able to increase that anywhere from 35 to 55 feet. So the narrowest part that we have is now 35 all the way up to 55. We also looked at it where we knew that the residential property that's right at the corner of Arches Way and 3rd, we heard some comments from that property owner that there was going to be disturbance through traffic there. And what we've created is that that buffer, that large buffer and vegetated area to basically shield that property from that traffic coming into Arches Way.
So we're talking about all
Yeah.
the dotted black line on the bottom where Chris lives on 3rd Street is now going to have, looks like you have landscaping and then grass and then a
But there won't
walkway.
be like a wall or anything. It'll be open.
So the design for that is to actually create a linear park. So
Mhm.
we figured, we've got this great green space. We want to provide public access to the waterfront, but also to the resort itself. We created a linear park. And in that linear park, what we're going to put is we're going to put a memorial garden.
Mhm.
So the idea behind the memorial garden, if you've been to Key West, right when you go to close to the water, they've got that memorial garden where you've got little monuments, a little history about Key West. We thought it would be great to have something similar for the island. That memorial garden can provide a little history about Fort Myers Beach. It can commemorate Ian and the lives that were lost. And also it can really celebrate the rebuilding of the town. And we're thinking it's something that's passive, serene, but it's a great place of interest and a great place for people to visit. So in that width, we are going to have some kind of decorative fence abutting the neighbors. We're going to have at least 10 feet of vegetation plantings to create that buffering, sound attenuation, screening. And then we're going to have at least a 15-foot portion that's going to be grassy area, pathway, and that memorial garden.
Right.
And so somebody walking on that green area could cut through to
and
the
go
bay
waterfront.
side.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we're doing is, if you go back also to the corner with Old San Carlos, that building on that corner is going to be
Building A.
Building A is going to be a bodega at the bottom. And when we're talking about a bodega, it's it's a bit of a convenience store on steroids. It's going to have a little more than the basic convenience store. The idea is if someone lives in the area or someone is visiting for a longer stay, they want to get some groceries also. And, pretty much all their local needs can be met right there. Above that, we're going to have a restaurant. On the previous plan, the back part as you went towards Arches Way was a parking lot. And what we said is, parking lot, not the nicest interface, close to a neighborhood. What can we do to make that better? So we've converted the parking lot to an outdoor market. So farmers market, arts and crafts, that type of thing.
That's right behind
that
Building
brown
A.
So
area?
the brown area
Okay.
would
I
be.
thought it was a pickleball court, but
Well, actually, what it's going to be is the restaurant above is going to have an open deck, and the market is going to be underneath. It's going to be covered.
okay.
So if it does rain or whatever, it can still operate, but it'll be open air, a bit of everything there. So it'll be a cool public place of interest, and then hopefully people will go to the market.
So Patrick, is going to be a 2-story building. It's going to
Two-story
be a
Bodega
grocery
with the
store on
restaurant
the
top.
bottom and a restaurant on the top. And that's basically right across the street from SOB, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And it's going to extend over the
over
deck
the
is going to
market
stick.
that's going to
okay.
be below. Also, what we're trying to do is right there at the green space right by the farmers
Mhm.
market. We said it would be a great spot for a dedicated tram pickup and drop off. So we have a little indent where vehicles can pull in. Also, it could be the dedicated Uber Lyft place to be dropped off or picked up if you're anywhere downtown. So we
Or golf carts,
Yeah.
drop off. Okay.
There, you're jumping
and
ahead again.
along that
Sorry.
building, we do have space for on-street parking, and we do have some space for golf cart parking also.
So when I hit the button here, we got these black squares on the top, Patrick.
Yeah, so that's the public promenade, open to the public along the bayfront. The idea is to create a really vibrant place for the public where there's dining, shopping. You get access to the waterfront. You get to appreciate those great views, vistas of the water, but also you get to participate actively with our marine environment if you want to, because we're going to have some charters. We're going to provide kayak launch and some docking space. So if you do have some of the neighbors that have kayaks or paddle boards and they want to just mosey on over, leave their personal watercraft. So it's nothing with an engine, just your non-motorized watercraft. You can park it right there. You can go enjoy the promenade, the restaurants, the shopping, and you can get back on your kayak and head on home if you want afterwards.
And you have the ferry.
Yep. And what we've got at the very corner of the property on the northeastern side is the ferry terminal for downtown. So as you know, Ben and his group are investors in the ferry, and one of their commitments is to build the downtown terminal, and that would be the main access to downtown via the ferry. And people could there'd be a ticketing booth in there also. It can get on and off right there at the resort.
Now, in all these black squares, so
Yeah.
far I've heard a lot of open to the public, Ben.
Yep.
Right? What's the question?
No question. No question. Like that. I'm sure people are going to like
no,
that.
I think that's the big public benefit is opening the bayfront up, right? So, and we think that's a great trade-off for being able to develop it in this way. And to be honest, what I think Veterans Bayside Park is, I'm not sure how wide is that?
It's not very
50,
wide.
60 feet,
Yeah.
No.
something like that.
And
So now we're getting over 600, 700 feet of bayfront access, and with a ferry and really activation of the water. So we just think this can be a totally different experience where people can actually get close to the water, get in it, go see the dolphins, go fishing, go sunset cruising, all those type of things, and really get personal with the wildlife and the environment.
So
yeah, I guess
can
I
you
was
just
making
go
a statement
back
more to
that
the people
area?
watching, open to the public.
Can you go back to that? You
What?
say black, but it was really it's dark blue, that outline spot.
Those are black,
So-
dear. Those are black squares.
Thank you. It's blue. Thank you. Thank you. So the
She wins again.
I
Well,
win.
women do see more colors than men.
The outlined
gonna see
area.
stars later.
Well, that was a good one, dear. It's not going to happen, but it was funny. The outlined blue area,
Yep.
is that land or is that water?
No, that's all public promenade. So it'll be hardscape, landscape.
Okay,
There'll be benches out there.
Where is the kayak launch? Just, for
Oh,
somebody
personal
who might want to
question.
know.
It'll be near the ferry terminal, most likely.
Okay.
Easy access.
Somewhere up here.
Yeah, it'll depend on final
Yeah.
Yeah,
pier
yeah,
and
yeah.
dock design.
But
So
it'll
what we
be
have-
open to people, anybody?
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one of the things to point out is this idea of having a public promenade on the bayfront has been part of our comp plan ever since the inception of the town. It's always been there. There have been redevelopment plans for the downtown over the years. There used to be a CRA that covered the downtown. There's always been this idea of providing public access to the bayfront and creating another bookend. So you've got Times Square, and we have Margaritaville. That is a substantial bookend towards the Gulf. This would be the landmark and the bookend at the other end of Old San Carlos, of our downtown. It would tie everything together cohesively. and it would be a great venue and a great landmark for people to visit. The other thing is this intensity of use that we've done for the buildings. We've done the exact same thing on the public promenade. So towards building B and C, that area at the ground level, you're going to have the most active restaurant, shopping kind of uses. That's where the majority of the activity will be. As you get to Bonita and that big gap between the buildings, we have a splash pad there for kids. It's a compass rose, again, with the whole waterfront theme. And as you go further west, under building D, we're thinking it's more of a marine store, mariner's lounge. So the intensity of use and the amount of people that would visit that end declines. And then when you get to the last building, there is no commercial use at the bottom of that building.
Just real quick, did you mention already how many parking spots? People are asking. I know we're going to save the questions to the end, but did you mention already how many parking spots, Patrick?
So we are going to have, let me look through my notes here. I just need to verify that so I don't.
And you're going to have
Got it,
public
Charlie.
parking spots too. You were telling us beforehand.
So previously, the project was giving up, was providing 93 public spaces. Even though we've reduced the number of rooms, our intent is to keep the parking very close to what it was. It'll be reduced slightly, but we're going to provide over 90 spaces for the public. And we are going to meet our code requirement for parking. And
Okay.
let me see.
352.
Yeah, so we're looking at about 350 spaces.
Okay.
And previously with the extra rooms, the requirement was that the project was providing about 380, and we're at 350-ish right now.
So 350 spaces with 96 open to the public-ish.
That 90,
So
95.
like you're
Right.
providing a 96 spot parking garage for the public.
Yeah.
Right.
So that'll be a big benefit also to the public. Lastly, on the promenade, what I'd like to point out is the promenade used to go all the way down the canal. And we've also heard some of the neighbors concerned about that activity along the canal. So the way we've modified it in this design is the promenade ends at that intersection with the canal. The portion along the canal will be for guests only. It will not be open to the public, and it'll be landscaped and buffered.
So we're talking about
Again,
E.
Is there a pool there?
Yeah,
next
there's
to
a pool
E?
there.
Okay.
And
that area
and
there.
that pool would be for guests only
Mhm.
of that building.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be, again, the idea of reducing the activity as you go further west.
And that building is condo hotel, so it's more of a residential. It's lower
Mhm.
intensity use. on
Okay.
that.
So this pool by B, is that a public pool? Or is it still for the hotel? I
yeah,
just want to make
one
sure
thing
people
to-
know
That's a great question, because the previous design had a public promenade at the ground level,
right.
but up on the pedestal above, there was also some commercial there and some activity open to the public. And one of the things that we did when we looked at that is we really wanted to create a better distinction between the guest experience and the public experience. And my business partner, Ken, was community development director in Destin. They've got a big harbor walk over there. And the harbor walk, the lesson learned over there is it does have that 2-level public space, and everybody wants to be at the ground level. And all the retail and the commercial at the upper level has always suffered. So the idea is we redesigned it. We put the commercial at the lower level. We think that's where people are going to want to be, where the activity is going to be. And then when you get to the upper level where the pedestal is, that's clearly resort experience, resort guests that are up there.
So how many retail spaces do you think it'll have, Ben?
Let's
For
see,
business.
Well, I mean, it's more in square footage. I guess how we divide them up will be different. I think we have about 15,000 square feet of retail space.
Okay.
And the pool is going to be up or down?
Yeah. So the pool is going to be on the 4th level.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And that's where on the 4th level, you're going to have your lobby. You're going to have your any kind of lounge You're going to have the restaurant, the hotel restaurant, and you're going to have your pool deck out there, some outdoor seating for the restaurant. The restaurant is going to be open to the public, but it's going to be a different experience than a restaurant that may be along the promenade. A promenade will be a lot more of a lively, active type of restaurant. This can be finer dining, a little more reserved when you get to the hotel restaurant.
So, Patrick, we're looking at the pictures of the new design here,
Yep.
and I totally lost my train of thought here.
Oh, there's a
Trying
shocker.
to figure out where the pool is.
No, I wasn't trying to figure out where the pool is. So anyway, it'll come back to me, and I'll
It
go back
will.
to that slide. So we were up to number 9. Is there something here that you wanted to show?
Yeah, so that one shows the buildings B and C. That's where the most of the activity will be focused and concentrated. The darker blue is the southern wing of the building. That's where the building drops from 5 stories from 7 stories down to 5 stories. Again, to be a good neighbor, to really soften that interface with the residential.
And that's going to be hotel.
That's gonna be hotel.
Okay.
Right. If we're looking at this slide, E is really the condo hotel,
Yeah,
right.
the more private
more
area.
private.
But everything else, B, C, and D will be hotel.
Yeah.
And
So
so- go ahead.
where you've got buildings B and C, under there, we've got 3 levels of parking. When you go to building D, we've got 2 levels of parking. And under building E, you have 1 level of parking.
So if somebody wanted to go to a concert at Bayside Park and they wanted to park with you, there'd be some spaces in building B and they could walk over?
Just come in Arches Way and you park right there and walk right over to Veterans Bayside Park.
Nice.
Mhm.
All right. Let's see what else we got. 2 more slides before the public benefit list.
Nice thing to point out with building D, what you see that little, that smaller building that's kind of slanted at an angle. The original plans had a nice little chapel that was very old Florida style, Key West kind of architecture. Our team loved that look, loved that design. So the idea was, if we're going to have a really cool chapel there, let's create uses surrounding that chapel. So now this chapel is going to be a true events chapel. The whole deck around it would be associated with any kind of event you hold it in the chapel. And the deck level would also have banquet reception hall areas. So if someone did get married at the resort, the reception would be right there. You could have cocktail hours on the deck. But again, it's an active use, but not quite as active as buildings B and C. And again, it could be something where you have luncheons for the chamber. It's just a great gathering spot, and it's used for different types of things, but not as lively and as active as B and C. And then when you get to building E, as Ben mentioned, that would be condo hotel. So it still functions as a hotel, but larger suites, and it's really catering to people that might want to have a longer stay.
How many condo units you think there'll be?
Well, they're not condo units. So
Oh.
condo hotel. So that means that if you do want to sell them to someone, it goes into a hotel pool.
Uh-huh.
They can be rented, and whoever owns that unit cannot spend more than 2 months out of the year in that unit. So it functions as a hotel. It can be rented. It's part of that hotel pool. It's just that the ownership, you're able to sell them if you want to.
There we go.
So last 2 slides are just to address public benefit. And as you guys know, the way we can ask for more density or intensity of use is to demonstrate exceptional circumstances and also demonstrate that we are providing public benefit. I can tell you that of all the projects on Fort Myers Beach that have been presented so far, this one by far is the one that is able to provide the most public benefit.
Are you saying the other ones didn't?
Well, no. What
Never
you
mind, you don't have
what
to
you have to
answer.
understand is the bigger your property is, the more opportunity you have to provide that public benefit.
With you.
And Ben and his group have done a great job in in putting forward these benefits. So, we have a lot of public access, a lot of public spaces. So we've got the Bayfront Promenade. We have the open market. We have the linear park and Memorial Garden. So that's from a public space standpoint. Then if we look at transportation mitigation, what are we providing? They've committed to provide a shuttle from the airport and also doing a stop at the Lee Tran transfer station on Pine Ridge. They've committed to the ferry and providing the ferry terminal. They've committed to providing 90 to 95 spaces of public parking. They're providing bike parking. They're providing bikes that will be available for their guests of the resort. They're providing kayak and paddleboard launch or docking area. And also they're making the resort very pedestrian and bike friendly. So
Can I just ask about the ferry?
Yep.
So the ferry terminal will be on your property, but where will it pick up from on the other side? Or is it going up and down the bay? Like what's the plan
we
there?
have had meetings with different marinas, the Mountain House, different folks, and on both sides of the bay and up and down the whole island on the bay side. And so everybody is excited about having the stops along, but those have to be finalized.
Yeah.
With zoning.
But it'll be to get across instead of driving over the bridge, and it'll be to go up and down.
Yeah, there'll be parking over there. I think Jim and Jack have a development going up over on Compass Rose on Main Street, and they have additional parking there. They'd be able to have a pickup, drop-off point there, as well as downtown. Pink Shell was interested, Snook Bite, Fishtail Marina, hopefully the Mountain House, Salty Sam's, Gulf Star. So I think all those would like to have stops along the ferry.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the DRAC program. I know Jim wants us to implement that. So similar to Myerside, they're going to implement that DRAC program. They're going to educate their guests that as an island, we prefer that you do not drive your car to the island. And if you don't drive your car and you use some other means to get here, there would be some kind of incentive, maybe vouchers to other local businesses, charters, bike rentals, all that type of stuff to promote other modes of transportation. The other benefits are similar benefits to other projects, but obviously there's a big economic impact resulting from this. We're talking about ad valorem taxes, we're talking impact fees, bed taxes, capital costs that the building and this big resort, well, when I say big, I mean from the standpoint of it's a significant landmark where it's an expensive investment, so big investment. Also, we are going to have secondary impacts to local businesses. So a lot of local businesses, when there is a resort in town, benefit from working with them. So from a water management standpoint, it's an older marina where there was no, basically much lesser standards than what we have today. And Jim Inc. and his group are going to be working on improving those drainage conditions. So numerous benefits. Very excited about this. And I think unless you guys have some questions.
You wanted to mention the elementary school.
Oh, yeah. Wanted to mention that also. As you know, I was part of that group that fought for the elementary school. One of the things that we worked out with the school board was that there was going to be an active partnership between the parents of the beach school, the businesses, and the local school to really promote our school. Let people know that even if you don't reside on the island, if you work on the island, you can send your kid to the beach school. Top rated school. Some news came out this week. Again, top 10 in the state, top 10 in the entire state. So the resort will promote that with their employees. Also, they're going to provide flexible schedules if the parents have to drop off their kids and pick them up at the end of the day.
Okay, so people know, Ben, how do you want people to give you feedback, or how do you want people to reach out to you if they want to give you
I mean, they can
comments?
still go to archesbayfront.com, and there's form fills, and we take all the feedback. I think we've got over 1,500 surveys and feedback to date, and we're always happy to take more. And obviously, this new updated version will spark new questions or recommendations. So please send them over.
And you're planning to, has anything been submitted yet, or you're waiting to do that next week, and then you're going to go, what's the process again? LPA or town council?
Next week, we resubmit. Staff is going to review these new documents. Hopefully within a month and a half, we are scheduled for the LPA. And after the LPA, we go to council.
Okay. And so just so you all know, if you came in late, they went from 400 rooms to 263 rooms, and you can see how less bulky it looks from those pictures there. And I do want to put these pictures up later so we can get more feedback, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah, the only caveat, you see the draft there, keep the draft on there. I want
For
people
sure.
to know that we are currently working very hard to really put the finishes and the details on those renderings, and we haven't done that yet. This is just a shell,
Right.
Just conceptual.
And you guys know that the neighborhood company does pretty buildings. That's for damn sure. So that's the old one, and that's the new one. So you can see, what's the difference there, Patrick? What do you think the difference is?
Difference is we've broken the mass down quite a bit. We've also worked on creating more sky, more air, more separation between the buildings, and we've worked really hard on making the resort functional and really creating that gradient of intensity, where there's a step down as you get closer to the canal. There's a step down in the height of the buildings, but also in the intensity of use.
Any final thoughts, Ben? Want everybody
Lean
to...
and mean. No, I think
All
it's. I think I really like the recommendations and changes we've come, and looking forward to some feedback. But I think we really, have addressed almost every concern we've heard over time. That we've come up with better ways with buffering and lines of sight, been able to keep and even add community benefits, and get the room count hopefully in a better spot people feel a little more comfortable with. And so I think we've been able to keep the best parts and really improve in most of it. So,
And you think the neighbors feel better about it?
We've had phone conversations with all of them. I think we've had great feedback, and we've had one or two with concerns. Probably, I don't know that we'll ever get 100%.
Sure.
But I think we really have. I don't think we're going to have too many that are of serious consequence at this point. But if so, we'll have to do what we can.
No, I'm sure when we put the pictures up later, when there are more people that are just looking at the pictures, they'll have more questions, and we'll write them down and pass them along. If you have any final thoughts, Patrick? I know you wanted to go half an hour. It's been an hour.
All right.
You talk a lot, man.
I like what I do.
And he's got palm trees on his shirt.
I'm pretty passionate about
Yeah.
planning and design, so it's easy for me. But one of the questions I've had is when it comes to your density, how did you wind up with that density, and why? And one thing for people to understand is when you're looking at a resort and this quality of a hotel, 250 keys or rooms is kind of that critical mass that is needed. It's the standard. Operators nationally, if they're going to want to come in here and operate this hotel, they want that 250 plus, and that's a critical mass. And as soon as you go below that, you're looking at a different type of hotel. You're not looking at a resort with all these amenities, with all these beautiful public spaces and all these benefits. You're looking at something less. And the idea was to create this landmark and a great hotel right along the bay bayfront and to really connect that downtown. So
So how do you make people? I know you can't deny a project on traffic, but everybody's mostly concerned about traffic. I think. How do you make them feel at ease that you're going to be able to get the cars in and out, or not cause the backup to go? Nobody causes it. It's people want to come to the beach. You said this a million times, Ben. They're never going to stop wanting to come to the beach, but you are putting 250 keys in a spot where they come right over the bridge.
you know what? I'll give you an anecdote. Just I think to me it makes it kind of simple, and I fully understand that. So first of all, when you're coming on the beach, we know that in season there's always a backup. You're kind of inching along to get onto the bridge, but as soon as you hit that bridge, you have an off ramp. You're downtown. You're going to be right there, so you are not creating additional congestion down the beach. Also, it's very easy to get out of that parking garage onto the ramp and off the island. Typically, getting off the island takes a while if you're further south and you have to go through that traffic. So we have some friends on the island here that have kids that are off island. And in season, it's really hard to go pick up the kids mid-afternoon. So what they've done is they park their car under the bridge and they use their e-bike to get to the car. And once they get to the car, even in the heaviest traffic during season, it's 5 minutes off the bridge.
Right.
So
Sometimes you have to get creative.
So we think this is a great location. You're going to have all the parking. We're going to meet our parking needs downtown. We're going to create a lot of activity where hopefully people don't need to go very far and they have all
Right.
their needs met and all their interests met right downtown. It's very walkable. So this whole Park Once concept, we're implementing that. When people do want to leave and come on and off, there's an on-ramp and off-ramp right there. And it's easy on and off.
And we've mitigated as many ways as we can with
Mhm.
bicycles and golf carts and water
The trolley.
ferries and so
Yeah.
using the trolleys and ride share pickup and drop off. So we've really tried to come up with every reasonable solution to help solve the problem.
In a perfect world, you get through the council and the LPA. What's the? I know I asked you this the
know it,
last
so
time. It was like 3 or
it's
4
probably
years,
another
right?
year to get your construction drawings done and get your permits, and then a couple of years to build.
So
Right.
three in a perfect world, it's still 3 years away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's if things go smooth.
Yeah.
So, and we've been under application since August of last year. So,
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on and unveiling the new plans and good luck. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
You.